Welcome back to Dinar Community Channel. It started with a whisper, then a headline. Now a confirmed revaluation of the Iraqi dinar has detonated across the global financial system. For years, the idea of a global currency reset was dismissed as fantasy. Today, it just became reality. But if Iraq was the first to break free from the old monetary order, who's next? And what does this mean for your future, your wealth, and the world economy? You're not just witnessing history, you're standing in the middle of it. The year 2025 has brought more than its fair share of economic surprises, but perhaps none as defining, or as potentially transformative, as the sudden and officially confirmed revaluation of the Iraqi dinar IQD. For years, currency watchers, investors, economists, and geopolitical analysts speculated about a sweeping financial realignment dubbed the global currency reset. It was dismissed as conspiracy by some, wishful thinking by others. But now, with the IQD rising overnight to a confirmed $6.20 exchange rate against the US dollar, what once lived in the realm of theory has suddenly turned into undeniable fact. The question now gripping both financial institutions and individual investors alike is simple: was Iraq's move the spark that ignites a global domino effect? The Iraqi dinar's rise isn't just a matter of numerical appreciation, it's a statement. For decades, Iraq's currency was undervalued, shackled by wars, sanctions, political instability, and a global economic system that kept it artificially suppressed despite the country's immense natural resources. For Iraq to re-enter the global stage with a currency valued higher than many G20 nations is not only symbolic, it's strategic. By backing its currency with oil revenues, natural gas contracts, and a growing reserve of gold, Iraq has repositioned itself from a regional question mark to a financial trailblazer. This shift also sends a strong signal to other resource-rich nations whose currencies have been lingering at basement levels without regard to their economic output. Across financial communities, chatter has grown louder. Could the revaluation of the IQD be the first signal of a long-anticipated reordering of the monetary system? Is this a carefully orchestrated reset that aims to rebalance global currency values based on real assets rather than speculative fiat dominance? The IQD didn't just move, it launched itself into a new stratosphere. The implications are massive. Countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, Nigeria, and even Brazil are now under close scrutiny. These nations also possess undervalued currencies, significant resource wealth, and rising political leverage. If the IQD is the first domino, what comes next? Historically, large-scale revaluations are rare but not unprecedented. In post-war Europe, several currencies were reset to stabilize economies. Russia and several Eastern European states executed abrupt monetary transitions after the fall of the Soviet Union. Thailand's baht revaluation in 1997, and China's multiple adjustments of the yuan, demonstrate that governments will indeed pull currency levers when politically or economically strategic. But never before has a revaluation been tied so directly to the idea of a global systemic reset. What makes this moment different is the coordination suspected behind the scenes. With Iraq's dinar revaluation now implemented, and with verified accounts of structured contract tiers, exchange appointments, and international banking infrastructure pivoting to accommodate the change, this event feels less like a standalone anomaly and more like the first domino. One of the core tenets of the global currency reset theory has always been the idea that the world is moving away from a dollar-dominant system. For years, the US dollar has served as the global reserve currency, primarily because of trust, stability, and oil trade agreements. But as debt burdens rise, inflation erodes confidence, and BRICS nations build alternative trade systems, cracks in the dollar's dominance are more apparent than ever. The IQD's surge to $6.20 wasn't just a revaluation, it was a message. A declaration that the global south and resource-driven economies are no longer willing to play by rules written decades ago. Iraq's revaluation implicitly questions why a currency like the Zimbabwean dollar or the Vietnamese dong should remain devalued when the countries themselves are rich in assets, trade, and sovereign influence. The IQD's move did not occur in isolation. Reports across major financial cities confirm that major banks, including JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, HSBC, and Deutsche Bank, quietly adjusted their foreign exchange systems to accommodate the dinar's new standing. Redemption centers, previously dismissed as internet myth, are now very real. Individuals holding verified currency have begun appointments under strict non-disclosure agreements, confirming exchange tiers, private contracts, and structured payout plans. In essence, there exists now a parallel financial process operating outside the public eye, but sanctioned by major financial networks. If Iraq was the first nation to flip the switch, the infrastructure to support additional switches is already quietly humming. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) and Bank for International Settlements (BIS) are also reportedly playing strategic oversight roles. These institutions have long prepared for a more balanced system in which currencies are not entirely floating, but rather pegged in zones of economic cooperation. For example, the Middle East and North Africa (MENA) region may eventually use a trade-linked currency basket anchored by the IQD, Saudi Riyal, and UAE Dirham. In Asia, China's digital yuan, alongside a revalued Vietnamese dong or Indonesian rupiah, could support a new financial alliance. These aren't fantasies. They're proposed models already being tested under digital banking frameworks and cross-border pilot programs. One often overlooked aspect of the IQD revaluation is the psychological shift it has triggered. Confidence is everything in the global monetary system. When countries see that Iraq, once heavily indebted and destabilized, can reform, rebuild, and command a premium currency valuation, it inspires similar trajectories elsewhere. We are now witnessing monetary ministries in countries like Nigeria and Egypt calling emergency review sessions of their currency policies. The Central Bank of Vietnam, always tight-lipped, has reportedly increased its gold reserves significantly in the last 6 months. Indonesia has ramped up bilateral trade talks with Gulf nations, potentially in anticipation of a non-dollar corridor. In short, the gears are turning. Skeptics will argue that a true global currency reset would require massive coordination, approval from central banks, and oversight by financial powerhouses like the Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank. They are not wrong, but perhaps that coordination is already underway, just not advertised. After all, the rollout of digital currencies, universal transaction ledgers, and de-dollarization strategies have all accelerated post-2020. The pandemic, the global inflation crisis, and geopolitical realignments after the Ukraine conflict have created the perfect storm. With more than 60 central banks piloting digital currency models and over 30 countries conducting bilateral trade in non-USD currencies, the world's financial scaffolding is clearly shifting. From an investor's standpoint, the IQD revaluation has reawakened interest in so-called sleeper currencies. Holders of Vietnamese dong, Indonesian rupiah, Afghan Afghani, and even the Zimbabwean dollar are no longer merely speculators, they are informed participants preparing for a possible structured event. The demand for secure holding facilities, legal trust accounts, and wealth management services tied to revalued currency is rising. Even cryptocurrency exchanges have started integrating IQD trading pairs, expecting future movement and liquidity expansion. This all leads back to the central premise: is the IQD the first domino to fall? The evidence increasingly suggests it is. But what matters more than what has already happened is what happens next. A single domino doesn't change the system, but a row of them toppling in sequence does. Iraq was chosen not only because of its asset reserves and debt capacity but likely because of its strategic geopolitical position. It's the testing ground, the proof of concept, and so far, the process has been successful. Early redemptions have been processed. Structured tiers are being respected. Banking integration, while cautious, has not collapsed under the weight of the shift. If Vietnam moves next, and credible rumors suggest that contracts for VND exchanges have already been issued privately, it could trigger a cascade. The value of the Vietnamese dong has been historically deflated, and Vietnam's strategic manufacturing base, trade surplus, and expanding role in Asian geopolitics make it a natural candidate for revaluation. Similarly, the United Arab Emirates, already on the cutting edge of blockchain-based central banking, may use digital tokens backed by oil reserves to issue a formal reset of its monetary system. Ultimately, the global currency reset is about more than currency. It's about sovereignty, control, and balance. Nations are pushing back against an order where a single reserve currency dictates the terms. The IQD revaluation isn't just a story about Iraq, it's a story about the world waking up. The truth is, many dominoes are already wobbling. Central banks are quietly preparing. Financial institutions are realigning. Digital infrastructure is in place. The IQD may be the first to fall, but if the past is any indication, it won't be the last. As 2025 progresses, Markets will watch closely for announcements, movement, and evidence. Will the IMF step in and set new SDR, special drawing rights, valuations? Will more nations abandon the SWIFT system in favor of regional trade networks? Will precious metal reserves be used to justify new currency pegs? Every one of these developments would confirm that the IQD revaluation was not a standalone event, but a coordinated first step in a wider economic realignment. So is the IQD the first domino to fall? Yes. But what's far more important now is how many more are lining up behind it, and how the world will look when the dust finally settles. Like and subscribe for more videos.